Cześć, 你好. I'm Ranona, and I'm from, well, the short answer is China. Both my parents were born and raised in China, so as far as I know, I'm ethnically 100% Han Chinese. Growing up, no one ever questioned me when I said I am Chinese, so I always thought this was a straightforward question, until I came to London, UK for university. In London, whenever I introduced myself, I would say I'm from China. Then one day, I was telling my new friends from university that I'm going back to Poland for Christmas. They looked at me confused, and that's when I realized I never told them that my parents live in Poland and that we moved there when I was just 2 years old. So you're really from Poland then, not China, they asked me. This question really surprised me at the time because I thought where you're from depended on your ancestry and heritage, not where you lived or grew up in. That's when I realized the answer to the question of where you're from can be so much more complex than I initially believed. After coming to the UK, I realized how even though I had quite a multicultural upbringing, I was still so ignorant about the world. I realized that in any country, people don't have to look the same to share the same culture and nationality. I understood why my new friends thought that I should really be from Poland, because they too were ethnically Chinese but were born and raised in the UK. So for them, the country they grew up and live in is where they feel like they belong. I get why they couldn't comprehend that I actually feel more connected to the Chinese culture and identity, even though I've only spent a few weeks at a time there visiting my extended family, but the rest of the time I was in Poland. So, do I really feel like I'm from China? Or do I just feel obligated to say that because of how I look? Or to avoid the awkward question of, but where are you really from? And can you really feel like you're from somewhere where you've never lived in? So, where am I really from? Well, let me break down my answer to 3 parts. Number 1, for me, where my home is and where I'm from are 2 very different concepts. Even though I came to Poland at such a young age, it wasn't always easy integrating into the Polish society. I always felt, or rather I always knew that I was different. And this is not surprising because racial awareness and also sometimes biases in humans are developed quite early on before we even reach our first birthday. Children as young as 7 months of age can see physical differences between people, including our skin color, and prefer to look in the same direction as someone from their own racial backgrounds during uncertainties. Children as young as 5 can start showing in-group preferences and out-group biases. This means 5-year-olds may already start treating people differently depending on which racial group they belong to. I still remember when I was 6 or 7, one of the girls in the school said that her skin turned pink or red when she got sunburnt. She then turned to me and asked, "But your skin, it must turn yellow instead, right?" I don't remember how I responded or what happened after, but what I do remember is that it was the first time I was singled out for looking different by someone else publicly. I don't know what the intention was behind her comments, but what I do know is how bad it made me feel. But for every negative experience I've had in Poland, I also can remember many more positive ones. I did feel welcomed by all my Polish teachers and most of my peers, who made me feel so at home in a foreign country. I remember being so scared going to the Polish kindergarten because I didn't speak a single word of Polish. But soon I did learn the language quite quickly and spoke it fluently at the time. I remember celebrating Christmas with Polish families, going to Polish weddings, and spending summer and winter breaks traveling to all the beautiful destinations around Poland, which I do hope to share with you one day. And and I loved and still love Polish food. If I had to choose between Polish or Chinese dumplings, I would, without hesitation, choose Polish dumplings. If I had to choose between Polish roast duck with apples or Beijing duck, I would, again, without hesitation, choose Polish duck. If I had to pick one place in the world I feel most nostalgic about, it would be Zakopane, a town in the southern part of Poland in the Tatras Mountains, where I spent countless winters and some summers at, and where I fell in love with skiing and snowboarding. And even to this day, when I see a Polish restaurant or hear the Polish language randomly on the streets, I would always feel a sense of comfort and familiarity. I may not feel like I'm necessarily from Poland, but this doesn't mean I don't consider Poland my home. This doesn't discount how fond I am of this incredible country, its history, its culture, and its people. I think any country that you have lived that long in, especially during your most formative years of development, will probably make a lasting impression in your life and create an attachment or bond that you will carry with you forever. I would say the same about the UK. This is a country I spend some of the happiest times of my life in, where I developed my passion for dance and for ballet, where I met my best friends, and where I met my husband. I chose to come here to study, I chose to stay and work here, and I chose to get married here to a British-Irish guy, or rather a British-Irish gentleman, in the sense that he is truly the kindest, funniest, and most respectful, caring, confident, patient, polite, and the list goes on person I have ever met. I've never known anyone who shares so many similar values and sense of humor with me, yet we couldn't be more opposite in terms of our ancestry and heritage and how we look physically. I also fell in love with the stunning Victorian buildings in the UK, the diversity of its residents, the self-deprecating and sometimes dark sense of humor, the charming villages, and breathtaking landscapes of the countryside. So although I don't think I will ever feel like I'm necessarily from the UK, I do consider it my home. I will undoubtedly miss London if we ever decide to leave, and any reminder of the UK will for sure make me feel homesick. So I will always, as cheesy and cliche as it sounds, have a very special place in my heart for the two beautiful countries I had the privilege of living in. Number 2, the only thing constant in the culture of my friendship circle was change. At the age of 9, I left my small safe haven of a private Polish school to a much larger American international school in Warsaw, where everything was taught in English. So just when I became fluent in Polish and established close friendships, I felt like my world got turned upside down again. I remember the panic and fear I felt on the first day at the American school much more vividly than my first day at the Polish kindergarten. I remember trying so hard not to embarrass myself by crying on the first day, but I just didn't want to be left alone again and to have to start over and again be the kid who didn't speak the dominant language used. Looking back, I'm so grateful I was given this opportunity. But for a 9-year-old, it felt like I was thrown into the ocean without knowing how to swim again. But thankfully, I was given swimming floats in the form of English as a second language class, where we got help for improving our English and where I realized there were other kids in the same floats as me. I've been so lucky to have met people from over 50 different countries before the age of 18. My closest friends growing up were from 13 different countries, such as Iceland, Canada, and India. The flip side of this privilege, though, was never having a friendship lasting longer than 5 years, because people in my school constantly moved to or away from Poland. You learn to expect friendships to be transient and learn to adapt to a constantly changing environment. This is perhaps what prevented me from assimilating to any one external culture, but rather every person I've met helped shape my identity in some way or form. Number 3, for me, family is everything. I've spent virtually all of my childhood in Poland and all of my adulthood in the UK. I've never been fluent in reading or writing Chinese. I've never experienced all 4 seasons in China. I've never really learned about the Chinese history or culture. But despite everything, I still feel most connected to the Chinese culture. I think the reason why I've always felt like I am from China, not Poland or the UK, is because throughout all the changes in my life, throughout all the friendships I've made and lost along the way, what remained constant is my family. I've always spoken Mandarin with my family at home, and my mom would always meticulously prepare almost all of our meals from scratch, and they were either Chinese or some kind of Chinese Western fusion. I should have appreciated this more when I lived at home. I also have always been able to find peace and unconditional support from my extended family in Beijing. All these years living abroad, I've realized that I have missed many family milestones and that my family has changed and have moved on without me to some extent. But no matter what, I never felt like an outsider when I'm with them. In fact, that's the only time when I feel like I can truly be myself. No matter if it's 1 year or 6 years since the last time I saw my family, the love and affection I received from them never changed, and I take comfort in knowing that it will never change. It's like no time has ever gone by. And despite all the tumultuous teenage years and headaches I gave my family when growing up, they never cease to remind me how beautiful I am inside and out. I used to think, but of course they would say that. They're my family. Their opinions are biased and do not reflect reality, so they don't matter. But if you think about it, maybe the opinions of those who care the most about you are the only ones that should really matter. Now, I'm not saying my family relationships were always perfect. We all know no family is perfect, and we have had our share of screaming matches due to our inevitable differences and perspectives, although most times we can't even remember what we fought so outrageously over because the reasons were that insignificant. So at the end of the day, I know that I'm one of the lucky ones. My heart will always be where my family is from. I think the best way I can describe this is to use a plant analogy. In the world of gardening, repotting a plant, so moving a plant from a small pot to a larger pot, can be stressful for the plant and shouldn't be done too frequently. But if done carefully without harming the roots, then this process allows additional room and nutrients from the fresh soil for the plant to grow and thrive. So as a child, even though I have been quote-unquote repotted a few times in my life, my roots in the form of my connection to my ethnic heritage and my relationship with my family were never damaged. This helped me develop a relatively stable sense of identity, belonging, and self-worth. This also encouraged me to see the positives in the world. It doesn't mean seeing everything with rose-tinted glasses and ignoring the negatives. We all know the world isn't always sunshine and puppies. But rather, it just helped me better manage challenges and to not internalize negative stereotypes and perceptions we receive from the outside world. I realized the importance of celebrating and promoting both our diversities and our similarities because our hearts are wide enough to appreciate and love other cultures and countries without disregarding our own. I think these childhood experiences are probably why I love to travel and why I chose to study psychology at university, because I'm curious about other people's thoughts, feelings, and lifestyles, which are factors that ultimately determine our health and happiness. I can't wait to share more of what I've learned and experienced. So this is the more nuanced answer to the question of where I am really from. This is just how I have made sense of my own subjective experiences. So let me know, where do you feel like you are really from? Where would you call home? That's all for now. See you next time.